Picture this. You walk into a Tesla showroom in Canada and see the Tesla Model 3 priced at roughly $50,000, only to have that price potentially double to an astonishing $100,000 if a 100% tariff is imposed. Imagine the shock, the ripple effects, and what this means for the future of the auto industry. This isn't just about a price tag. It's about a dramatic pivot in global economic strategy, with US, Canada trade topping $800 billion annually, and the Canadian auto industry contributing over $50 billion to the economy. These moves send shockwaves far beyond the showroom floor. Stay with us as we break down the real-world impacts of these trade decisions, from the soaring cost of your next car to the potential price hikes at the gas pump, and discover how a single tariff could change everything. Chapter 1: Tesla Tariff, a symbolic and economic power move. At the core of this controversy is Tesla, the American EV giant that currently commands about 44.4% of the US electric vehicle market. Tesla isn't merely a car manufacturer, it's the flag bearer of the green energy revolution. By proposing a 100% tariff on Tesla vehicles, Canada is signaling that it will not stand idly by while US policies disrupt fair trade. Consider the Tesla Model 3, which is priced at roughly $50,000 in Canada today. With a 100% tariff, that price could escalate to an astonishing $100,000. This dramatic increase would not only reduce consumer affordability, but could also force Tesla to reevaluate its market strategies in Canada. Beyond the immediate impact on Tesla, this move has broader implications for American automakers such as Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler. Should Canadian consumers shift away from expensive American EVs, it opens the door for European and Asian manufacturers to capture market share in a once dominantly American segment. Imagine planning to buy a new electric car, only to see its price double overnight. This means fewer affordable options for families wanting to adopt eco-friendly technology. Previous studies suggest that a price surge like this could reduce local dealership sales by as much as 2 million fewer new vehicles sold annually, potentially jeopardizing up to 715,000 related jobs in manufacturing, sales, and service. Beyond the car lot, higher vehicle prices ripple through communities, affecting everything from insurance rates to loan interest costs, thereby directly impacting daily budgets and long-term financial planning. Chapter 2: The broader impact on the North American auto industry. Canada's auto sector is a powerhouse that produces 1.5 million vehicles annually and generates more than $62 billion in revenue. A significant share of these vehicles is exported to the US, meaning that any disruption in this trade flow has massive implications. Recent data from the US International Trade Commission values the bilateral trade in automobiles and auto parts between Canada and the US at over $131 billion a year. If the proposed tariff triggers a broader trade war, the consequences could include factory shutdowns, severe supply chain disruptions, and potentially hundreds of thousands of job losses. Industry reports estimate that even a 10% decline in production might result in the loss of over 10,000 jobs in key auto manufacturing regions. Moreover, this trade dispute might force a long-term realignment in the competitive landscape. With increased costs, American manufacturers might lose ground to European and Asian brands. Analysts forecast that the overall sales volume of EVs could reduce by approximately 793,000 light vehicle sales in 2025 if aggressive tariffs become standard practice. For the average person, these shifts might translate to higher vehicle prices and longer wait times for repairs or new purchases. If factories cut back or close, local economies could suffer significantly. In communities where auto manufacturing is a primary employer, a 10,000 job loss could mean fewer job opportunities, reduced consumer spending, and lower tax revenues for schools and public services. This cascading effect would make everyday living more challenging for families already grappling with rising costs. Chapter 3: Canada's Strategic Pivot, Diversifying Trade and Reducing U.S. dependence. Canada's move to impose tariffs on U.S. goods is part of a larger strategy to diversify its trade partnerships and reduce its economic dependence on the United States. For decades, the U.S. has been Canada's largest trading partner, but recent political tensions have forced Canada to explore new markets. One cornerstone of this new strategy is the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement (CETA) with the European Union. Under CETA, trade between Canada and the EU has surged to around $56 billion annually. Furthermore, the Canadian automotive market is projected to grow, with vehicle registrations expected to reach approximately 51 million units by 2028, up from 30.5 million in 2023. Canada is also shifting its energy export strategy. Historically, about 97% of Canada's oil exports went to the US, but new agreements with countries like Japan and China are gradually redirecting that flow. Additionally, Canada is collaborating with the EU to secure a supply of strategic minerals lithium, cobalt, and nickel, which are critical for EV battery production. This alliance could potentially boost Canadian mining exports by over $10 billion a year. The Canada-European Union Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement (CETA) eliminates 98% of European Union (EU) tariffs and many non-tariff trade barriers, and paves the way for a new era of increased trade between Canada and Europe, chambers, and partners. For everyday citizens, this strategic pivot could lead to more stable prices for imported goods and reduced price volatility. A diversified energy market has been shown to cut price swings by 10–15%, meaning that the average household might see lower, more predictable fuel and electricity bills. Additionally, new trade agreements are expected to create more job opportunities in renewable energy, mining, and advanced manufacturing, with projections from economic think tanks suggesting a potential 5–7% growth in employment in these sectors. This means more secure, better-paying jobs for families, directly translating to improved standards of living and a boost in local economies. Chapter 4: The U.S.-Canada Trade War and its impact on agriculture. Trade wars don't only affect the automotive sector, they can deeply impact agriculture. U.S. agricultural exports to Canada are valued at roughly $20 billion a year. When the U.S. imposed tariffs on Canadian agricultural products such as dairy, grains, and meat, Canada retaliated with its own tariffs on U.S. farm goods. The result has been a volatile market for farmers on both sides of the border. Some staple products, including soybeans and corn, have seen price declines of 10–15%, leading to estimated annual revenue losses of approximately $981 million to $15–21 billion. Dairy farmers, in particular, have borne the brunt, as Canadian demand for U.S. dairy products has shrunk considerably. These retaliatory measures have forced U.S. farmers to seek alternative markets, with many turning to European and Latin American suppliers. In the long run, these disruptions may lead to a consolidation of farms, where smaller family-owned operations are absorbed by larger corporations, reshaping the agricultural landscape in North America. For consumers, these agricultural disruptions could mean higher food prices at the supermarket. USDA's Economic Research Service (ERS) provides projections on food price inflation. In 2025, overall food prices are anticipated to rise by 2.2%, with a prediction interval of 0.4 to 4.9%. This might seem modest, but for a typical household, that can add an extra $200, $300 per year on food bills, particularly impactful for low to middle-income families. In rural areas, where farming is both a livelihood and a way of life, the economic strain could lead to a consolidation of farms, reducing local diversity and community stability. These changes directly affect what ends up on your table and the overall vibrancy of local economies. Chapter 5: Energy Security, a critical vulnerability for the U.S. One of the most critical aspects of the U.S.-Canada relationship is energy. Approximately 60% of the oil the U.S. consumes is imported from Canada, along with significant volumes of natural gas and hydroelectric power from Quebec. The stability of this energy supply is essential for everything from powering industries to keeping homes warm during the winter. If trade tensions force Canada to redirect its energy exports to more lucrative markets in Europe or Asia, the U.S. could face a serious energy crisis. Analysts estimate that a disruption in Canadian oil supplies could push domestic energy prices up by 30–70 cents per gallon within a year. The U.S. Energy Information Administration (EIA) warns that even a temporary shortage could reduce industrial output by up to 5%, affecting both production and employment across energy-dependent sectors. For the everyday American, higher energy prices mean more expensive gasoline at the pump and increased heating bills. EIA research suggests that in regions heavily dependent on Canadian oil, households could face an annual cost increase of around $500. This extra burden affects everything from the cost of commuting to the price of goods that rely on energy-intensive production processes. When energy becomes less predictable and more expensive, Families must tighten their budgets, affecting their quality of life and overall economic well-being. Chapter 6. Shifting global trade dynamics. Is U.S. dominance on the decline? For decades, the United States has enjoyed a dominant position in global trade. However, recent trends indicate that this dominance may be eroding. Countries like Canada, the EU, Japan, and China are forging new trade alliances and diversifying their markets, leading to a more multipolar global economic landscape. Data from the World Trade Organization shows that global trade has grown by an average of 4% annually over the past decade. Yet, the rise of protectionist measures is beginning to slow this growth. The U.S. has seen its share of international markets decline as traditional allies seek new partnerships. For example, under agreements like CETA, projections suggest that the EU could expand its share of Canadian trade by an additional 32%. What does this mean for the everyday consumer? A decline in U.S. trade dominance can lead to higher prices for imported goods and fewer choices in the market. Studies indicate that such shifts might raise the consumer price index by 1–2%, directly affecting about 20% of consumers in key sectors. Moreover, a slowdown in technological innovation, if American companies lose their competitive edge, could delay the introduction of new products and services, potentially leading to higher costs and fewer advancements that make everyday life more convenient. Chapter 7. The human and economic cost. Impact on workers and consumers beyond the broad economic figures and international policies. It's important to remember that trade wars have real human costs. Thousands of workers in both the auto and agricultural sectors depend on a stable, predictable trade environment. Disruptions can lead to factory closures, job losses, and long-term economic distress. When workers lose their jobs, the effects extend far beyond the individual. Communities can suffer as local businesses close, public services are reduced, and overall quality of life declines. Okuhn's law shows that a 1% rise in unemployment can correlate with a 2% drop in local economic activity, impacting everything from school funding to healthcare services. For families, this means uncertainty about paying bills, maintaining stable housing, and affording everyday necessities, real-world challenges that underscore the personal toll of international trade disputes. In summary, Canada's proposal of a 100% tariff on Tesla vehicles represents more than just an isolated trade measure. It signals a fundamental realignment in global trade dynamics. From the impact on the U.S., auto industry and energy security to the rippling effects on agriculture and everyday consumer prices, the stakes are enormous. The big question remains, will the U.S. adapt its trade policies to stay competitive in a rapidly changing global order? Or will it risk economic isolation as its traditional allies? Build more diversified, resilient trade networks? Only time will tell, but one thing is clear. The choices made today will shape our everyday lives for years to come. We'd love to hear your thoughts. How do you think these changes will affect your day-to-day life? Drop your comments below and join the discussion.